Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, wow. We're here, 9:10 a.m.
Yes.
It's Monday.
Happy
Beautiful
Monday.
Monday morning. Yes, happy Monday. Welcome to Force for Growth Live.
Woo!
And what do we
Yes.
do every Monday?
We
Word of the
do a
week.
word of the week. I'm gonna let Michelle tell you about that while I grab the definition.
So every Monday we do the word of the week. We pull a stick called Do 52 from a group called House of Shine. And they created this Do 52, and it's mindfully, the sticks have a verb on them. And so each week we pull one on our Monday morning 6 a.m. call and look up the definition on that verb. And it reminds you to mindfully do something. So, whatever that verb is, we kind of focus on that word. And our word of the week this week is recognize. So,
Recognize.
Courtney has the definition for
Yes,
us.
according to Webster, the verb form, so to acknowledge formally, such as to admit as being Lord or sovereign, to admit as being particular status, to admit as being one entitled to be heard. Let's see, to acknowledge or take notice of in some definite way, such as to acknowledge with a show of appreciation or acknowledge an acquaintance with, or to perceive something or someone you've previously known.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much stuff. So
This was
much
a
stuff.
deep one.
Yeah. What are you missing that you need to recognize?
Yeah. I like that.
Comment below. What are you missing
Mhm.
that you need to recognize?
Yeah. What what do you need to stop and give yourself credit for? Recognize how far you've come, but also, recognize how far you have to go. It just take measurement where you are and, dive into the appreciation for a minute.
That's one of the things this morning I liked in our discussion this morning that two of the definitions, one is to acknowledge existence of, and the other is to know again. And so one of the discussions we had this morning is you might recognize something in your life that you need to change or you need to work on, and you may not actually do the work or take action to do that, and then later on recognize, so know again, which covers that second definition, and then finally maybe take action.
To know
Hmm.
again. That I know that is grammatically correct because that is the definition from the dictionary, but it sounds off to me because I don't think we think like that, do we? We don't really say, "Oh, we get to know again," or "You need to know again." We just use the word recognize.
It's a
But when
different perspective on remember.
yes, yes, because it's not the same. It's not the same. It's to know again.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
such a more powerful, poignant word to know again when you say to know again.
it is. And that's something you brought up this morning is that it's a very empowering word when you say like, okay, I recognize this, or you're telling a story and at that point I recognize, it's a very empowering move, whether you're in the moment recognizing it or looking back on a transitive moment in your life. But that's something you brought up that I think needs to be highlighted here, is that it's a very empowering word. If you can get to where you are recognizing something, you're you're doing a great job analyzing, you're doing a great job with awareness, you're doing a great job at a lot of things to get to the point where you admit to yourself, okay, I recognize I'm the source of this issue, or I'm the source, that takes courage to say.
It
So
is.
by default you're empowered.
And just the fact when we say I recognize versus I remember or I feel or I think, it feels different even when you just say I recognize the issue that I'm having. I recognize that's a bad habit.
Hmm.
Instead of
It goes into
go
that.
ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say it goes into that personal responsibility that I love to talk about. But when the empowerment, when you recognize your role or you recognize your responsibility, it empowers you to make the changes you want to make in your life.
Ooh, recognize your role.
I like that. Yeah.
Comment below. You guys are watching. What do you need to recognize this week? Comment below. Or have you recognized so far? What did you recognize from last week that you need to change this week? Think about it for a second, and those thoughts are there.
Mhm.
Courtney,
Yes. Well, okay. So one thing to add to that. Okay. So one thing I wrote down since our 6 a.m. call and just thinking this over, I wrote down, do you notice the green flags as much as you notice the red flags? So we go through our life and we notice when we don't like something, we notice when we're against it, but we don't we leave off 50% of that. We don't notice when we do like something, when we do, discernment. Michelle talks a lot about that. When you do need to take a step towards this in your life, but you miss the whisper because you just can't hear it, So, but yeah, no. What am I? What was the question again? Because I want to answer it honestly. I
what
was,
do you need to recognize this week?
yeah, that what I was looking at. What are you avoiding recognizing on my? So I just need to recognize I'm able. I'm able. Just do it. Like just get it done. I'm finishing a call challenge this week, so I have more than the weekly number to do this last week, but I have more than enough ability to get it done. And if I stay with that in the forefront of my brain, it'll be a lot easier.
It is. Don't
Yeah.
succumb to the fear, because that's a
Yeah.
big one.
Don't feed the fears.
Don't feed the fears. But you can recognize it. You can recognize that you're uncomfortable. You can recognize the fear. You can recognize what's going on.
And once
But
I recognize what it is, I can deal with it. I can be
correct.
done with it. I can solve it. I can move past it.
One of the other things that we talked about this morning that I think is important to do is recognize other people's efforts, like recognize them for their efforts, because that reinforces that positive behavior. So when you see someone doing something good or killing it on their goals, and celebrate them, recognize them, and let them know that you see that.
That's a big one.
That is a big one, because I don't think most people think that. I know that I fall into this with Sebastian, our 7-year-old son, that he knows he's doing a good job. He's 7. No, he probably doesn't know he's doing a good job. We have to let him know and positively reinforce him. And I think,
Mhm.
and I mean, if I'm falling into that trap with my 7-year-old, I'm sure I do that all around with everybody. That I think that, oh, well, you guys know you're doing a good job. You know you're doing great. You know that was good. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
I
Well, it's
think
that
these people,
justifying, like, I didn't say anything to you because, or, well,
yeah,
I just thought or assumed, that's why I didn't say anything. Like, we do that all the time to our friends and people around us. So,
We really do. It's a
yeah,
big thing.
making assumptions. We assume that they know we see it or
yeah.
recognize it. But
Yeah.
I think
And that can,
giving
yes.
someone recognition is important, because it goes a long way for the other person.
And for you, what does that do for you when you give recognition? When you recognize somebody and you give that recognition, it makes you feel good too,
Yeah.
because you see the other person react and they're like, oh my goodness. Because most of the time, I don't think I don't think that they think that people notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you actually notice the effort,
Hmm.
then they're like, oh, they actually notice. My
I
effort's
think
actually seen.
I think people, that word, you just said it. I think people want to be seen. And when you recognize them and show that you see them, I think that it just goes a long way.
Show
Hmm.
that you see them. Okay. So what do you need to recognize this week, or who do you need to recognize this week? Who should you recognize? And I'm
Can,
saying it very specifically this way, because if I start planting that seed in your head of who you need to recognize, you'll automatically be looking around for people to recognize.
yeah. Yeah.
Ooh,
And can
Susie
I add a
Foster.
third one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let
Susie
Susie go first.
Foster.
That's good.
OMG, so many employees need to hear this. Yes, they
Yes.
do.
Or
Especially right now. Oh my goodness.
employers. She says
Employers.
employers. Yeah,
Employers.
they do,
Employers.
because they
Yes.
need to recognize their employees, and
Oh my goodness. When's
it
the last
gives,
time you recognized
yeah,
your restaurant worker? When's the last time you recognized your delivery driver? Mm.
The cleaning guy. The cleaning guy. That just at the end of the day, like get to know their name. Tell them thank you every night. Like, you
It goes
know.
so far,
yeah.
that
Hmm.
appreciation. Go
It
ahead,
does.
Courtney. Your third
So
point.
the third one that I was like, well, why not? Let's throw this in there. What are you seeking recognition for that you just need to stop? that it maybe
Oh.
is
Good
using
one.
up.
Good
Ooh.
We didn't go
spin.
there this morning, but well, okay.
Wow.
So what made me Jim Rohn? So whenever we got off the call, I listened to a lot of Eric Thomas and Jim Rohn this morning. So, but Jim Rohn, negative is normal. It's not successful, but it's normal. You must learn to handle it. So that's kind of in that what we were talking about, recognizing where you are in the moment, and when you get there, do I need to pour effort into this or do I not? So as you were telling everybody to recognize who or what you need, or do you need to recognize, add that in there. What are you seeking recognition for that is completely like vacuuming your energy and it isn't going to produce results for you, you know, but we're all spinning our wheels somewhere. So check in.
Mm,
Yeah.
that is good.
With that said, yeah, I just I'm doing it. The month of not focusing on numbers has just done so much for my mentality and kind of the stress-free energy every day. So that's mine to add to it. So I'll be the guppy. I'll go first.
Okay,
You
let me
stress
ask
less.
y'all this based on that real quick. What's the difference between focusing on something and just simply recognizing it?
Intent. Both involve intention. It's the length of time. You know, focus is over time. Focus, but it takes
More
you,
effort.
yeah, it takes like, no, I want this outcome and more energy in the moment to continually stay in recognition of what you're doing to make sure it's relevant to what you need to be focusing on, where recognition can be a 1 second little thing.
So you're not focusing on the numbers, but you recognize that there's a number that needs to be met.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I tell myself a solid statement and move on. Move on. I don't need to pour energy for 3 hours into worrying about, oh, it's Thursday. I read my numbers today. Oh, da, da, da. You know, that energy could have been poured into quoting 2 more households. Like, you know, like when I think of it in practical terms, it's just
So
not
that
worth it.
so we should recognize what we need to pour more energy into and what we need to
Yeah.
take energy away from.
Well said.
I like that word pour. What are you pouring into? Who are you pouring into?
Mm.
I want to bring up one of the other things we talked about this morning on our call, that Rebecca was talking about, is recognizing things. She talked about the frog in the hot water
Oh yeah.
scenario, and I
Yeah.
think that's so good. So recognizing gradual things, and for me, it's if we just kind of ignore what's going on gradually under the surface and don't recognize signs, symptoms, then before we know it, it's gone too far, and it takes a lot of energy to reverse whatever's been done. So with me, like with my weight loss, I lost 60 pounds and I want to keep it off. And so I have to recognize if I start to go back to my old habits, if I do that for too long, it's kind of like all of a sudden, oh no, I let it go too far. So I've got to be mindful of that and recognize when I'm having tendencies to go back to old habits and fix that quickly before it, gets to where it's really hard to reverse.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned the frog in the pot. Who wants to tell
Yes.
that analogy? Raise your hand.
Okay, I guess I'll go because I learned it this morning. I think I'd heard it before, but I'd never actually heard it broken down. So, a frog, I'm going to tell it backwards. If you put a frog in boiling water, like it's just sitting there or sitting in lukewarm water and you dump it in boiling water, it will hop right out immediately. It'll feel the heat and hop out. But if you put a frog in lukewarm water, put it on the stove, turn it on, put a lid on, or I guess it doesn't work for the analogy, but basically like where they can feel it heating up the entire time, the frog actually will not hop out. It'll let itself boil to death. And that just has analogies across the board. But yeah, that one was a big eye-opening one for me because that late lessons in life like just could have been summed up by like, hey, look at the feedback, listen to the feedback, do something with the feedback and move on, like just instead of dwelling somewhere and just letting myself boil to death. So basically if you can boil it to death and they will just not notice the many opportunities to jump out.
Yes. So here's the thing. We don't condone boiling frogs. We
No.
don't know anyone that has boiled a frog.
No animals were harmed in the process of this.
No, correct. We haven't tried this ourselves, and we don't personally know anyone who has tried this themselves.
And please don't.
And please do not try this yourself. This is just an old story that we've heard that's been around for some time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rob. Thank you for
Rob
tuning in.
Cardenas.
Oh,
awesome.
and it's Cardenas, not Cardenas.
Yeah. There you go.
You better recognize.
Oh my gosh, nobody made the recognize joke today.
That was the first thing that came to my mind when the word came up. You better recognize. Yeah, you better.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. This is good. Wow, so much stuff. The frog in the pot. Recognize. Okay,
That was a
comment.
good one. That was a good one.
Comment below. Let us know what you're thinking about the word of the week. Recognize. What do you need to recognize? Who do you need to recognize? Who do you need to acknowledge that you haven't acknowledged? Who do you need to pour some love into?
One thing.
Oh wow, I shouldn't say it like that. I need to. That sounded a little saucy. I recognize that. Yeah, I recognize that as soon as it came out. I'm like, oh, Barry White's playing in the background.
There you go, right? Get out the sax. Okay, so one thing on a video I saw of Eric Thomas this morning, and he just said, even if they did it to you, you let them. Now, he was kind of talking about a different subject, but on the term recognize, this is right after a call when I heard all that. So I heard it as, who do you really need to forgive? So I think we hold on to a lot of weight that isn't ours, that was only meant to be a split second of weight for us to carry, but we ended up like holding on to it for 20 years, you know? So the quote was, even if they did it to you, you still let them. So recognize who you really need to forgive for something. Just give it like a treat to yourself. Like, who do you really need to forgive? And spoiler, it's you. So just take a moment back and, or maybe it's not. Maybe you owe somebody an apology from 20 years ago. That will actually do a lot for you now if you just kind of release it. If you're still holding on to it, if that's still weight on your heart, apologize to yourself for it. Apologize to somebody for it. So
let's see.
That's a whole Kristen.
Kristen says yes, not just yes, but yes.
Yes. I think forgiveness, that's another topic that I love to talk about, because I think forgiveness is for the forgiver, not the forgiven.
Yes.
So a lot of times you can forgive and the other person really couldn't care less if you forgive them or not. But what you do when you forgive is you release that, and it no longer has you in bondage, or it's no longer weight that you carry, like you said, Courtney.
Mm-hmm. And more often than not, we are, we need a hashtag, but like it's usually us, we're angry at ourselves for letting that happen. So I just thought that was a good tip to end with. Just it ain't nothing, ain't nothing but a thing. So come on, just do it, pick it, go for it, apologize, forgive yourself. You're doing great. Like, in all reality, we're doing the best we can. And if we could recognize that in the moment, that it's little moments you stack. So that plays into the daily self-talk. That plays into everything. It's little moments you stack. So if you can I have a little journal thing where like I'll write down something I'm proud of myself for before I go to sleep. And that has done a lot for my anxiety, but it's also done a lot for building my confidence. But anyway, different subjects for different time, but just recognize something, or don't go to sleep until you've done something you're proud of. Until you can take recognition and be like, I am proud of myself for doing that.
Recognize and apologize.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Kristen gave us an amen. Woo-hoo. Rob says it's clarity. Oh, it's so much clarity with that. Final thoughts, Courtney.
Clarity. There's power in clarity. So so recognize where you need to clear things up and do it, and stop thinking about it. Just do it.
Do it. Final thoughts, Michelle.
The same, really, just recognize and then take action, because like you said this morning, Courtney, knowledge is not power, execution is power. So once you recognize, then take action.
Yes. And for those of you wondering about this morning, we keep on referencing this morning. We have a 6 a.m. call every single morning, 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. If you would like to join and hop on and have some lively discussions,
Mhm.
you can visit the website 6amtribe.net.
Yes, on Mondays and
Mondays
Thursdays.
and Thursdays.
Mondays and Thursdays, just 2 days a week. We got to give Alex a big shout out.
Yeah,
Yes.
End of the day recognition. Yes, end of the day recognition of the day's wins.
Mhm. Yeah.
Recognize your wins.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm going with it. Recognize your wins. Recognize yourself. Recognize others. Share the
Recognize
love.
your failures as steps closer to your goal.
Yes.
Like, you know,
Ooh,
yeah.
so many good stuff. All right. So, Michelle, what's going on Friday?
On Friday, we
day.
are interviewing a really awesome person. Her name is Tracy. I'm super excited about it. So you guys join us. She has, yes, she has ridden her bike 3,527 miles across country.
Woohoo!
She is a champion for diabetes. She's a best-selling author. So you guys join us on Friday morning, and I cannot wait to interview her. It's going to be awesome.
Y'all see that number right there? 3,527 miles. She started June 13th, 2017. It took her 3 months approximately and finished September 13th, 2017.
Yeah,
That's
it's going to be so
incredible.
good.
That's incredible. You know, speaking of August challenges, and I can't wait to talk to Tracy about this, but I do have to point out. So I love how Jessie is sharing Jessie Ricardo's wife is sharing her progress for her August challenge and daily. And anyway, I did the math. So 3 miles at 31, she's going to walk almost 100 miles in the month. Like,
Woo!
that's
Go,
crazy. But like, so
Jessie.
shout out to Jessie for just being, you know, a warrior. But like, so I kind of put myself in Jessie's shoes when I made that comment on the post. I was like, man, so I wonder if she's ever thought like, hey, I'm going to walk 100 miles, you know, but that's where stop with the limiting beliefs, you know, because it can be done. No one ever said you had to do it all in one day. Nobody ever, you know, like look at the possibilities,
Yeah.
but you ruled that out. So I just think that's amazing. And just anyway,
I love how you're
shout out to Jessie.
recognizing Jessie for what
Yes, she deserves to be recognized for that because that's very
She
badass.
does. And big shout out to John Nelson. Very nicely done. Good words for the day.
Thank you for tuning in, John.
Fire,
Yeah, I
coffee,
love the
fire.
coffee. Yeah.
I know,
Fire,
right?
coffee, fire.
Fire, coffee,
Perfect.
fire. Thank you,
That's
John,
our
for
favorite.
tuning in. All right, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you visit forceforgrowth.com to subscribe to the YouTube, our audio version, and all of that kind of good stuff. And save the date, November 21st. Basket delivery here in North Texas. Visit basketsforgood.org for more information on that. That's just the first plug for this one. Man.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, it'll get good.
we
But
gotta
November
get it.
21st.
November 21st. I like the date. 11/21/20.
Yeah.
It has a rhythm to it.
Yeah. Let's see what Rob said. Let's recognize that it's one step at a time. Absolutely. And another terrible animal analogy. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Not that we're condoning eating elephants, but
It's also how you eat a frog. One bite. Huh.
that is. Oh, eat that frog.
Eat
Oh,
that
right,
frog.
right.
Oh my goodness. I wonder if it's the same frog
Sorry,
that
Brian.
got boiled.
Tracy. Yeah, right. I wonder
yes.
if that's where he got. Anyway, okay. So if you haven't heard that, let's end with
Boys.
that.
Beastie Boy shirt under the blazer.
So if you eat your frog first, it doesn't sound appetizing. When you make your to-do list of the day, do the least appetizing thing first, because then it'll give you protein and energy to do all the other minimal things. So that's the eat that frog analogy. And I nannied for a British woman. She was so cute because she'd always be like, I ate my toad. I ate my toad. And she'd always say that. So eat your toad first, eat your frog, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, tackle the big one because that'll remind you that you've got it.
And again, we don't condone eating live frogs or cooking
Or
your own frogs or boiling your own frogs or any kind of that would bring any harm to a frog.
Yeah, not at all.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Have a great day, everybody. And we'll be back on Wednesday. Remember, the word of the day is recognize. Recognize somebody. Recognize yourself. Let us know how that worked out for you. Comment below and like and share this video. And have a great week, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good one.
Bye.